Hello students, today's video we will be discussing about human respiratory system, the basic mechanism how we inhale air, how we exhale, and what are the basic things that we need to understand in case of respiration. That part we will be discussing about. So let us start with the concept of respiration. So our topic is human respiratory system. So before we move ahead with this topic, we will be talking about respiration. So respiration, it is a biochemical process. It is a biochemical process. Why it is called a biochemical process? Let us understand. First of all, we need to understand it occurs in cell. So what happens, the basic things you must have heard, that respiration is oxidation of glucose in presence of oxygen. In presence of oxygen we call respiration. Why? Because let us take glucose molecule is there. First I will write word equation. Glucose molecule is there. It reacts with oxygen. Then we get carbon dioxide. We get water. And we get energy in the form of ATP. If I give you the balanced equation for this, then I would say C6H12O6 plus 6O2. Several enzymes are also involved, but we will not be talking about that. So we get 6CO2, then 6H2O, and overall we get 38 ATP of energy. Basically, how this happens in a cell, let us learn. So now we have understood that in case of respiration, glucose is there. Glucose is oxidized in presence of oxygen, or glucose is broken down into carbon dioxide and water, and along with this energy is released, and this energy is utilized by living organisms to do various activities. So let us take the basic concept about respiration, that in a cell what basic changes occurs. We are not going to study in detail the steps of respiration that occurs in a cell, but we will just be talking about the two main phases of respiration. Suppose, imagine that this is our cell and we have glucose molecule. Glucose molecule will get converted into two molecules of pyruvic acid, and this process happens where? It happens in cytoplasm of the cell, and this process is called glycolysis. And if this pyruvic acid gets, let us say, oxygen, then inside the mitochondria, there is one important cycle called Krebs cycle. Krebs cycle has several series of events that occur and utilize this pyruvic acid to release. So then it gives carbon dioxide and water, and enough energy is released. Overall it is around 38 ATP. But in case if it does not get oxygen, means in absence of oxygen, our cells will start producing lactic acid, and hardly overall 2 ATP energy is released. So here we come to know that if oxygen is available or is a kind of aerobic respiration, we have Krebs cycle which is taking place in mitochondria, and it will release carbon dioxide, water and 38 ATP of energy. But if we don't get, or our cells don't get enough oxygen, then our muscle cells they start producing lactic acid. You must have experienced this. Suppose you are running basically in summer season. We have such experiences that we get muscle cramps. How do we get muscle cramps? When the oxygen demand of our muscle cells is much more than the oxygen that we are inhaling from the atmosphere while running or doing various vigorous physical exercise. In such case, our muscles they suffer oxygen debt. Due to that, lactic acid formation takes place. Therefore, we get muscle cramps. However, such cramps are not long lasting. They are short lived for few minutes, or let us say for an hour. You may have muscle pain, but slowly you get relieved, because the lactic acid again it gets converted into carbon dioxide and water, and we get sufficient energy. So let us move on now, as we have understood the basic steps of respiration that we have. Now we will be talking about, we are following class 6th ICSE book, so we will follow as it is given in a prescribed test book in a school. So the topic wise we will be following. So now question arises, sometimes children they ask that about human respiratory system. So the basic diagram we will be drawing, let us say this is our nostril through which we inhale air. This is our nostril. Then we have nasal chamber. When the air goes to, there is a common point where a mouth and a windpipe meet, and this point is called pharynx. Here to stop we have an epiglottis. This one is called epiglottis. This flap-like structure stops the windpipe in case when we are swallowing food. Then this windpipe is made up of C-shaped cartilage. And then we have two lungs. These lungs are protected by a special membrane we call perineura or pleural membrane. This membrane protects our lungs. This cartilaginous tissue divides and it gets branched off several times. First we call primary bronchiole. I will write here in short, primary bronchiole. Then it is secondary, since it gets divided further, so it is secondary bronchiole. Then later it is not made up of cartilaginous. Then finally we have air sacs, we call alveolus, and plural it is called alveoli. This is the actually site where exchange of gases takes place in our lungs. So now we will not be making it very lengthy. We will first understand how we inhale air, what is the mechanism behind inhaling air. So our next topic that we will be talking about is breathing. Breathing is a physical process of taking in air and giving out air, and this involves two phases. One is called inhalation, another one is called exhalation. Inhalation means taking in air, and exhalation means giving out air. So if you compare the percentage of air that we take in, what are the major components, then the air which we inhale, if you see, oxygen is about 20.09%, nitrogen is about 78%, and oxygen CO2 is about 0.03%. Let us compare now the basic composition, percentage composition of various gases that we exhale. So oxygen, similarly we will take oxygen, here it will become 60 to 70% only. Nitrogen, since it is non-reactive gas, there is no change, but substantial change you can observe in case of carbon dioxide, which we exhale, we give out. So that gas, you will find that it is about 4%. That's why when you blow, when you take a test tube, and let us say you have taken lime water in it, start blowing, if you start blowing, you blow with mouth, then you will realize that this lime water turns milky. Why it turns milky? The chemical aspect, if you would like to understand related to this, then you just see. So, lime water contains calcium hydroxide, and when you are trying to blow carbon dioxide, then what we do? We get a product calcium carbonate, which precipitate is seen as milky white, and we get water. So this calcium carbonate formed that makes the lime water, which is colorless, to appear as milky white. But if excess, further I would like to say that there is calcium carbonate formed and water is there in the solution, but if you try to pass excess of CO2, then you will get calcium bicarbonate, and this calcium bicarbonate is soluble in water and it will appear again colorless. Therefore, here we have to understand that water soluble calcium bicarbonate is colorless, again it appears. So excess, if you pass carbon dioxide, then you will find calcium bicarbonate found, which is water soluble. Now we will be learning about how we are able to inhale air, how breathing we carry on. Let us learn the mechanism. Let us learn mechanism of inhalation. How we inhale. You can imagine, just like our fingers, there are gaps, ribs are there, and between the ribs muscles are there. We call them intercostal muscles. So when we inhale, we can observe that our chest moves outward and upward. At the same time, the diaphragm moves downward. So when we inhale, what happens? Chest expand, diaphragm, if it is normal position, then this will move downward. So simultaneously two movements occur. Let us understand. Chest moves upward and outward, and this diaphragm moves downward. So when these two movements occur simultaneously, Here volume increases, and you know well that volume pressure is inversely proportional to volume. So since volume is increasing, what happens? Pressure decreases. Pressure decreases. So when pressure decreases, there is low pressure compared to the atmosphere, then what happens? Air gushes into the lungs. Gushes into the lungs. Low pressure is developed in our chest cavity. Then air gushes into the lungs, enters into the lungs. So this is the basic mechanism that we have during inhalation. During inhalation, chest moves upward and upward. Simultaneously, diaphragm moves downward. When this happens, volume of our lungs increases, means pressure decreases in our lungs. So air from outside, from the atmosphere, gushes into the lungs. Now let us take up mechanism of exhalation. How we exhale air. What is the mechanism behind this? Just this is diagrammatic explanation. So during exhalation, you just see the way I am demonstrating to you. When I take in air. So when I am taking in air, chest is expanding, moving upward and outward. When I breathe out air, you must have observed. When I am breathing out air, chest is coming to its normal position, moving, let us say, downward and inward. Simultaneously, diaphragm moves. So, if I would show this position, see my hands, then I would say when I inhale, and diaphragm moving downward. So, volume is increasing. Reverse to this, when I am exhaling, this one is moving downward, and diaphragm is also moving upward. So, volume is decreasing, pressure is getting increased, therefore the pressure inside the lungs pushes or expels the air inside the lungs outside. So diaphragm relaxes, moving upward. Diaphragm relaxes, moving upward, and chest relaxes, chest muscles relaxes, moving downward. So what happens? Volume is decreasing. Then what is happening simultaneously? Pressure is going up. So if pressure is going up, means pressure inside the lungs will expel the air. So air is expelled. Air inside lungs expelled out. This is what happens during inhalation and exhalation, as we have seen. So these are the two mechanisms, mechanism of inhalation and mechanism of exhalation, just we have understood. Now the very important topic that we should discuss in human respiration, that is exchange of gases that takes place in our lungs. exchange of gases in lungs. First of all, we should know that exchange of gases takes place in the alveolus actually, or exchange of gases, the site for exchange of gases in our lungs are alveoli. So a diagrammatic explanation that I would like to give, suppose imagine that this is our alveolus and surrounding this we have, let me say, blood capillaries. Surrounding the alveolus we have blood capillaries. Now what happens? The air which we inhale, there you will find partial pressure of there we find oxygen is more. We will compare now. Percentage of oxygen is more, as we have studied just before a few minutes. I discussed with you that oxygen percentage is more, and the blood which is brought, from whole body parts, this blood has less oxygen. Therefore this oxygen will diffuse into the blood capillaries. Reverse to this, carbon dioxide is more here. In the blood capillaries, carbon dioxide is more. So carbon dioxide will diffuse from the blood capillaries into the alveolus, and then it will move out. So here we need to understand why this happens. So inside alveolus, partial pressure of oxygen is more than in blood capillaries. Therefore what happens? Oxygen diffuses into the blood capillaries, and this process is actually causing oxygenation of blood. Reverse to this, in blood capillaries what happens? Inside blood capillaries surrounding lung, surrounding alveolus, surrounding alveoli, what happens? There we will find that partial pressure of carbon dioxide is more than in the alveolus. So what happens? Since more pressure is there here, and always diffusion takes place from higher level to lower level. So here also carbon dioxide diffuses into the alveolus from blood capillaries. So So in this process, if you would say, it is a removal of CO2 from blood is taking place here. So this blood which is coming, actually it is coming from body parts, and this blood which is being taken, let us imagine two heart or two heart, and then to all body parts. So this is how exchange of gases takes place in our lungs. Now little we should learn that how these gases they combine with our blood and are carried to different parts of our body. Very basic descriptions I would like to give. We won't go in detail about discussing about all this. Basic transport of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Very briefly we will talk, because this is not the part of this chapter entirely, but since we are talking about exchange of gases, so how it goes on. So for example, we will take for oxygen. What happens in the lungs? It combines with hemoglobin and it forms HbO2, that is oxyhemoglobin. So if I say in the lungs combines, and at tissue level of our body it dissociates again. So it is just a reversible reaction, you can say, and it's very temporary. So at tissue level oxygen is released, hemoglobin remains in the blood and is brought, and further it brings. Next one. It is reported that very little, what about carbon dioxide? Very little carbon dioxide combines, and it is called carbamino hemoglobin. So about carbon dioxide, it is by this process it is hardly up to 5% only, and this is almost 100% or 95+%. This hemoglobin only carries oxygen. Then what about the remaining? So almost 95% carbon dioxide actually combines with blood, plasma of our blood, as bicarbonate, and then they are taken to different parts of the, from the different parts of the body to the heart, and brought then to the lungs for oxygenation. So this is what we can understand related to this. You must have heard the last thing, that is very very important that you should know as a general learning about creating awareness about carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide poisoning. What is this? Carbon monoxide gas is colorless, it is odorless, there is no odor. So even when you inhale, you won't realize that you have inhaled. Only the thing is slowly you will turn to be breathless and you may lose your breath, that is, you will die. So it happens that when carbon compounds are burned in insufficient supply of air, then we get carbon monoxide. And carbon monoxide, if it combines with hemoglobin, we get carboxyhemoglobin. Carboxyhemoglobin. And remember here, it is stable compound. And since it is stable compound, further result will be we will suffer with oxygen debt. And due to oxygen debt, it can lead to death, or we can say it is fatal. Means it causes death. Therefore, we should not inhale. So these are the basic things that we have learned related to human respiratory system. This is much detailed, much advanced. We will be learning slowly, but since this is lower class fundamentals, class 6 level science, so we have discussed this one. Thank you for watching this video, and we'll see some other chapter, other topic in our next video. Thank you so much.